So we've talked about what we might need to notice as the challenges out there in the organisation. But I'd also like to offer you a point of view of how you might be able to solve the challenge. And clearly, I'm going to talk about the benefits of coaching here. I believe, and I really strongly believe, that coaching, as I say, could be the weapon of choice, not only for individuals to help people help themselves, but for organisations. David Peterson, who's the internal coach at Google, talks about coaching being the ultimate customised solution. And I really believe that's because it can get to this psychodynamic part of people where we can really look at what's really going on. And we can also think about those target groups as well and think, actually, could coaching not only help individuals, but could it help collectively improve the conversational skills of young people? Could the skills of coaching, could the training in coaching help them have better conversations, more powerful conversations, and in time be prepared to be leaders that do the same, who ask more rather than tell in the future? The key talent bit is the art of listening. So it's the art of finding the fact that it may be slower to slow down into their jobs and do more listening as a line manager, but that it could be more effective in the long run to shorten this queue, but also how it would feel for them to be listened to themselves. And for the key talent groups, it could just be about driving their own self-development. Could it be that actually, rather than waiting for someone to take them on a journey, they can start to think about where they need to take themselves, where they can add their own development to their discussions. And often, just a simple hour spent with a coach can be the kickstart to where they want to start owning their own journey and start developing their own plan and start to think about what they can do to make a difference to their own development and their own journey within the organisation. So this is my belief, but I can also back it up with some data. So I was thrilled when I did a search into the International Coaching Federation files and also listening to some recent lectures from them, that a recent paper has really started to prove that coaching can really make a difference into talent outcomes, including this very key topic. So very recently, the paper that was designed in 2018 from a research panel that was done at the ICF really struck me that there's some facts here, there's some return on investment facts that we can start to look at in terms of what coaching can do in this way. This survey was constructed with the ICF in partnership with the Human Capital Institute, and 432 respondees, companies who already had instilled some form of coaching culture and coaching with organisations, were asked to say what have been the talent outcomes and organisational outcomes 2 years after putting your coaching culture into place. And when I saw the facts here about what it meant to the percentage of employees who really felt engaged, I was blown away. Look at the difference here in terms of the percentage of internal moves that were actually being stimulated from these conversations, the percentage of internal hires that have increased, and the percentage of high performers were being retained. Then there has to be something in this data that says this is an important step. But you may ask, well, that's all very well, the individual's being catered for there, it's helped them in their journey, but what about the organisation themselves? Well, here we go. The next slide is the business outcomes that were happening for these same organisations at the same time. And here we have some really, really strong metrics that said labour productivity increased, profitability increased, shareholder value increased, and customer satisfaction increased. In fact, all these metrics increase. And therefore, there's a real sense that in the partnership with what's going on for the individual, you're going to see that there's more that can actually happen on productivity. And yet we mention productivity as being the thing we fear if we don't do something. So why not take a step into this coaching culture dynamic and do more? The last slide that I took from this paper was one that really talked about what's going on in terms of the interventions that were going on within that time period. And when I saw that this is really where coaching was outstripping some of the other L&D interactions or all the other things that were going on in the change programs that were being put in place, I really was blown away by 3 dynamics. The first was the difference that it made that you had an access to a manager or a leader who was using coaching skills. 70% of respondents here said this is what was extremely helpful to them in terms of managing their perspectives. You then have working with a professional coach and a practitioner, so there is still a role for those that are trained to a level where they can really take the psychology into account. And there was also, as I said here, working with maybe somebody that was both internal and possibly external as a one-to-one coach. And as we talked about coach matching earlier, and there's a real sense of how that might work, it really talks about how those things need to work in partnership.